You still have a chance to send it to us the following week during that session. But again, we'll do our best to get to your questions. And then we'll filter them through so we're not asking duplicate questions. So we'll do our best. So please be patient with us. Tonight is our first night. And don't forget, so after this presentation, which might take about an hour and a half to 2, hopefully not longer than that. Okay, so Susan's like, no. But previously, it takes long. It's enriching because there's a Q&A section. So of course, the dialogue becomes rich. After our presentation, we will have refreshments outside. We do have tea, decaf coffee, and lots of good desserts. So don't forget. All right, so tonight's topic is on debunking dating myths and making love work, right? Well, that's what I had on my list. Same thing. So I'd like to welcome George and Susan to the stage. Welcome, you guys.
I think I'd prefer standing than sitting. Yeah.
We'll get you a stand. Do you want to stand? I think this is.
George, you want to scoot over a little bit that we can be in the middle?
Hello. Hi, everyone. We're so excited to be here tonight. See some familiar faces and some new faces. So my name is Susan. This is my husband, George. And we've been married for 16 years, 9 months, 21 days, but who's counting? And we attend Christ the Savior Church, the American Coptic Orthodox Church in the San Fernando Valley. We have been to this church many, many times, so we're happy to be back. All right. Anyone who knows me knows that we're going to start off with a fun demonstration. So I'm going to need a volunteer. Anyone thinks that they're good at Legos, I have a challenge for you. So just raise your hand or I'll pick you and come on up. Okay, come on up.
We have a Lego fanatic. Come on
I
up.
know this guy. This is Thomas. Say nothing, that's just church. Thank you for volunteering. Okay. So you're an engineer? Kind of, yeah. Kind of. Perfect. That's a perfect kind of person that we want. All right. Go ahead. Go up on the stage. All right. So the challenge tonight is this. Okay. I have a box of Legos. And I'm going to challenge Thomas to put them together. Okay. Go for it.
Without instructions?
Yeah, but you're going to need to speed it up a little bit, and you're going to need to put together a Ninjago car, like a very cool race car speedster thing.
How many wheels?
You should have all the pieces that you need.
Are you sure?
Okay, let's give him a round of applause. Thank you so much. You could leave it.
Are you sure?
Yeah, just to keep people like awake and reminded of the whole point. Oh, there are other wheels right there. Okay, obviously, if I give him this box, which is cleverly wrapped, right, and I give him no instructions, that is going to be very difficult, especially when I say that there's a specific end product. you need to come up with a super cool Ninjago car. I don't know if anyone knows what Ninjago is, but that's kind of how we approach our dating life sometimes. We're like, there's all these really cool pieces, like I have this and this and that. And then we just kind of are expected to kind of know what to do, know how to put the pieces together and come up with this really beautiful relationship that ends up in marriage and honors God. However, if I were to give you this box, right, and give you all the same pieces and give you dun, 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 this with all the specific step-by-step instructions and a picture as to what you're looking for, then I think you would be a lot more successful in being able to come up with this. This is a super cool Ninjago car. And that's what I think we are going to aim to kind of talk about today is this, is that sometimes we feel like, you know, there is no dating book of instructions, right? There's no exact picture of what we're looking for. But what you'll see is that society has fed you all the rule book. They have tried to explain in detail from every aspect of what dating looks like, how you're supposed to do it. And then we put together these pieces and then we realize, oh, wait a second, this doesn't really fit. And wait a second, this car doesn't look like the one it was supposed to look like. So what we're going to do today is challenge these myths that you've been taught. We're going to debunk, that's like a very exciting a verb that we are going to do together tonight. We're going to debunk and uproot all of these myths. We are going to talk about 7 myths that we kind of subliminally kind of believe like in the back of our minds about dating and about relationships. And we're going to kind of uproot each one of those and take it one at a time and then kind of challenge those established thoughts. Some of them you might be like, oh, no, I don't believe that one at all. And other ones you might be like, oh, wait a second, I didn't even know that was not biblical. So we're going to kind of take a look at that.
Yeah, so a lot of people come into dating, and you're coming in with all your own baggage, your past, your problems, your hopes and dreams that that person is going to make happen for you, right? And so I feel like you're walking in to that relationship already having a mountain of burden ready for whoever comes into your life. Like, God help whoever comes into your life, because they've got a lot of problems like waiting for them. And that's the wrong way to, like, you're not even in a relationship yet, and you're walking in already set to fail. Like, you've got a mountain of things that person has to solve, and past stuff that you're going through, and whatever. And this poor person, whoever meets you, God help them, is not going to want to be with you because you're already setting it up for failure. You've already like saying like, hey, there's all these problems that I've got, and I'm just waiting for the person to come and fix them for me, or to make my life feel better, or to, make everything fall in line. So I feel like the world tells you how to fall in love, what that person should look like, what the feelings are that you're going to have when you meet them, but they don't talk about anything after that. You get to, in the movies where it's happily ever after, so you get to the point where you meet the person, you're really excited, you fall in love, and then movie ends. Like, that's it. That was the end of the movie. Nobody talks about how to keep the happily ever after going, how to get through the hard times, how to make sure that this actually functions, so that it just doesn't look beautiful, but it works, and that it works for both people. And so I think that people are failing to plan. So it's almost like you have to have a plan for your life, and a plan for your dating life, and then a plan for post-dating life, and what marriage is going to look like, or else you don't have a plan. You have no map. You're going to wander around the desert for 40 years, right? Like, you need to know what you're going to do when you get there and when you find this person. And also, as much as you have to have a map and you have to have a plan, I think that we also have to get better at rolling with the punches. I think a lot of people have a set plan in mind, and if that person doesn't check off all the boxes, and some of the boxes are ridiculous, by the way, that they can't roll the punches. They're like, no, this must not be the person that God sent to me. They're not beautiful. I'm out. Like, you know, so I feel like we have to be able to be a little softer with that, know how to change and morph, and also to know what to look for. Are you looking for the right things? Maybe you're looking for the wrong things, and you didn't know. Society maybe told you, a couple things that are important, and they left off the actually important stuff that's going to keep two people together in love. So that's the part that I feel like we have to start working on, having a plan, having a map, having someone guide us through it. And I think Susan's going to talk about the first myth that goes with that.
Okay, here we go. Myth number 1. I need to find the right person that completes me. It sounds so beautiful, but it's wrong. It's a myth. This is not a realistic thing to expect. We've spent our whole life watching romantic comedies, and these romantic stories are, they draw us in, and they are from a completely biased source. It's from these movie makers who want to make money and who want to get views, right? And we fall for it every time. It's like this woman walks into a cafe and she sees a guy, and then they drop something, pick it up, and they bump heads and they giggle, and they're so different from one another, and so she agonizes over it, and then her token best friend is like, come on, it's okay, and kind of guides her through the situation, and all of a sudden he ends up at her work with flowers. And then you think, wait, how did he know where she works? That's a little creepy, but that's okay because he likes her. And so, then they end up together, and it's like so beautiful. Women eat this stuff up. I'm watching a series right now on Netflix that is so much like this. It's called The Good Witch, and it's so cheesy, but it's like, I gotta keep watching because it draws you into this magical, loving world. But that's what it is. It's an appealing story, but it's not reality. And so we seem to think that there's this notion of one right person out there for us. And if that's the case, it's like us kind of aimlessly wandering the world trying to find this one person. Like, what are the chances? I happen to be born in Southern California. What if this one right person is like, I don't know, in Finland? Like, how am I going to find them? It sounds like really magical and kind of like, oh God, like just like lead me to them. But when you really think about this idea of a soulmate, it comes from ancient Greek mythology. It's not actually biblical. So the idea that there's one soul out there comes from Plato, and it comes from a book that he wrote many, many, many years ago called The Symposium. And in the Symposium, there is a character named Aristophanes, and he's this ancient prototype human, and this human is both male and female in one form. And they used to call these humans in this book or in this time round humans. And so at that time, Zeus felt like this was becoming a superhuman, a superpower, and they were afraid they were going to take over the gods. So this male-female like morph. So the story goes that Zeus cut them in half and like sent them to the opposite sides of the world, male over here and female over here, and they would spend all their time trying to find each other, come back to each other, that they would be so desperate to find their other halves, and when they found each other, they would be so, longing to be together that they would no longer challenge the gods. So even though this story has long passed, the idea that, there's one other person that completes me out there in the world comes from these, fictitious stories long ago. But if you think about it, and if you really read the guidebook, aka the Bible, right? Not this, but the Bible, the idea that someone else completes me is completely false, right? The idea that I am incomplete because I am searching for God and that I need Him and His salvation to be complete is actually a more realistic viewpoint. That's actually what we believe. So when I'm looking for someone in a mate or someone to date, right, it's not because this person will complete me, but it's because I am searching for God. They happen to be searching for God, and together we can be soul mates. S-O-L-E. Soul, like the sole of your feet. Because this idea of a soulmate, S-O-L-E, soulmate, as opposed to the other soulmate, comes from a very popular author, Gary Thomas, from the book Sacred Search. And in this book, The Sacred Search, he talks about the idea of finding this S-O-L-E soulmate, someone with which you can walk out the biblical commands of loving and serving God, trying to get to his kingdom together.
So we are focused really hard, especially when you're single. You are very focused on finding the right person. I think you get a little bit obsessed sometimes of like trying to find this magical person. And I think it's like you dream about them, you wonder where they are, you wonder why it might not be this person or is it that person. And the whole time you don't realize that you have to be that right person. You have to be working on yourself. And I think that's, a tough notion for people, because they say like, I want somebody with like looks, I want somebody with ambition, I want somebody who has it together, I want somebody who believes in God, I want, right? You got a list. I'm sure everybody has like a running list. But yet, what are you doing to work on yourself? Like, have you even begun to do the same things that you'd hope? Like, so if you want somebody who's really godly, are you working on being godly and being close to God? If you're hoping that someone's educated, how educated are you? Because if you met somebody who's very educated, if you're not, they might not be attracted to you. Who knows? Like, so the thing is, I think the more you focus inward before looking for this beautiful, perfect person somewhere out there, you have to be that beautiful, perfect person in your heart, in your mind, in your soul, right? You've got to work on yourself. That way you don't walk into what we were saying earlier about walking with baggage, right? So if you're working on yourself and you're really trying to become a better person, right? I love reading all these books that are like self-help type books. And I feel like it's really great. It's helping me to learn about how to be better with dealing with people, how to be better with dealing with family, how to be better at being a leader, how to be a better speaker, and so I feel like I'm growing and I'm changing and I'm getting better at all these things. So if I wanted somebody who had all these qualities, I should be working on these same qualities. So you have to ask yourself, am I somebody who's going to be desirable to others when they see me? And it's not about looks. So much of desire has nothing to do with looks, right? It's good if you do work on yourself. You can go to the gym, you could do whatever, but you also, a big component is that key connection that happens when you like somebody's soul. When you meet them and you're like, I don't know what it is, but I just feel so comfortable around that person. I feel like they make me feel at peace. They're so smart. They have so much deep things to talk about. They love God. That love of God exudes in like a peace and calmness, like an aura around them. Do you have all those things? Because if you do and you're working on yourself, you will attract the right soulmate, the S-O-L-E mate. So go ahead, Susie, you're saying about...
So when we think about that one perfect person out there, we've debunked that notion. We've eradicated that. But the one that we do seek is that vertical relationship. That the key verse of this whole talk and of the entire book that I had referenced, The Sacred Search, is Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. And so that's the theme verse for this evening. Is a lot of times we think of a relationship. It could be any kind of relationship, but we're talking about the dating relationship or the marriage relationship. We think of it like, I'm 50%, I'm going to come in with 50%, the other person's going to come in with 50%. The problem with that equation is that you don't have 50% to give every day. Sometimes you're really tired. Sometimes there's a situation at work that's totally pushed your buttons and you just don't have the patience that day. There's a lot of times where we cannot bring everything to the table. So where does that leave us? 50 plus 25, today we're at 75%. It doesn't work that way. And so when we think of God completing the whole picture and seeking Him first above all else, then that's where we can get to the point where that's enough. That relationship is enough, and everything else that our heart desires, right, in terms of relationships, shall be added onto us.
Yeah, being single is not a problem. I think that we need to get our minds around being single can be a blessing much more than sometimes we feel like it's a curse. So if you're single, that means God has given you all the time in the world to do so many good things. So I remember that I used to serve so much in church when I was single. I used to have so many friends when I was single, right? Like you're out all the time. We used to, together with my friends and serving in the church, we used to do so many things for God. So we used to go on retreats and we used to do so many amazing things. Serve as a deacon, teach in Sunday school. It's all these times that are special, but those times are the times that you work on yourself, are the times that you enjoy that season. Everything has a season, right? And now I'm enjoying a different season. So I think that being single is not a problem. Being single is the time for you to enjoy, to better yourself, to become the best version of yourself, to come closer to your Creator. Because if you have a big God-shaped hole in your heart, right? Like there's this big square shape, and then you're gonna meet a woman and she's a circle and you're gonna try to fill this. There's a hole in your heart, right? But the hole is not spouse-shaped, it's God-shaped. So I feel like a lot of people walk into marriage or the hopes of marriage thinking that person is gonna complete me. I'm gonna meet them, that missing thing that was in my heart is gonna be solved. As soon as I meet them, it's gonna be fantastic. That ache that I have, that emptiness that I have is gonna be solved. When I think if we are complete before marriage, and complete meaning you've figured out all your stuff, you have went to Abuna for counseling, you have read the Bible, you've read all these self-help books, you are like now a complete person who has it all together, and you are not looking for someone to fill a void, but now you're just looking for someone to walk with you, right? To walk with you on your way to God, to walk with you on your way through marriage, to walk with you as you have a family and have children. You're not looking for them to fill a big void that you have in your heart because you haven't been working on yourself, right? You're looking for them just to be a wonderful companion. And I think that alleviates some of that pressure that when somebody comes and meets you, that you don't have expectations, right? You might have expectations that they have to be a good person, they have to love God, they have to love your family, they have, but it's not like weird expectations like, oh, you're coming and you're gonna heal my broken heart, and you're gonna do this and you're gonna make me feel better about myself. Those things that are things that you have to work on before you ever meet that person. So in your relationship, you first have to meet God and feel a completeness in your walk with God and in your own heart. Then you will have the clear conscience and readiness to meet someone that can do all of those things that you want.
There's a story of this family or this couple who goes to buy a house. And so they go to the real estate agent and they look at the house and they say, oh, this is really nice. How are the neighbors around here? And so the real estate agent asks them, how were the neighbors at your last place? And they said, oh, they were really loud and they were really obnoxious and they were very inconsiderate. And then so he says, oh, okay, well, the neighbors around here are probably the same way. And then another couple comes and says, the same thing. Oh, how are the neighbors in this neighborhood? And then the real estate agent says, well, how were the neighbors at your last house? And they said, oh, well, they were very, kind and sweet and considerate and whatever, thoughtful. And then he said, you know what? The neighbors around here are pretty much the same way. And that is because however you see the world, right? So if you're a lonely person, if you are a negative person, if you're a person that kind of holds on to grudges, you're going to be that same person that you bring into marriage. Myth number 2, real love happens naturally. That's what we all really want to believe. We want to believe that we're going to go to Starbucks and we're going to sit there and all of a sudden this really cute, really handsome, really romantic, religious Coptic Orthodox guy is just going to come in and it just so happens that, he goes to the church that, is down the street. And you're going to create this connection. And while that would be very cute, right, it's not always realistic. And sometimes some people are against what they think of as unnatural ways of meeting people, whether it's being hooked up by somebody that they know, or a referral, or a dating site, or whatever it is. And so that's just something that we're going to challenge you on tonight. It's kind of like a high school kid sitting in at home and waiting for UCLA to kind of just mail them a key to the dorm. It's that just doesn't happen that way, right? You actually have to actively pursue being a student at UCLA. You got to take the right classes, you got to fill out the application, you got to do your extracurriculars, whatever it is, and then you apply. And so we are going to challenge you to think about pursuing marriage. If this is something that's on your heart and it's something that you desire, it's okay to want it and it's okay to pursue it. And it doesn't have to happen in this organic, magical way that you may think of it as.
Yeah, for men, I think as they're going around, if they have decided that they want to get married, I think in Proverbs 31:10, it says, a good wife is better than rubies and jewels. And so you have to realize that who you're going to pick for marriage, if you're a man, I'm talking to the men now, is the most important decision you could make. It's more important than the career you're going to choose. It's more important than where you're going to live. It's more important than a lot of things, because a good wife can make your life so sweet and so nice, right? And if you don't take your time and pick the right person, guys, it can also have the exact opposite effect, right? It also says in the Bible that a man would hide on the corner of the rooftop of his house to get away from a contentious woman. So it is a really big deal that you think long and hard about this, because as sweet and nice as they can be, they could also be the opposite. But that's on you. You also have to be a good man to attract a good woman. If you're not working on yourself, if you're not trying to be the best version of yourself that you can be, you're not going to be attracting the same type of person, that aura that you're looking for, that person that you're looking for. If you're not working on yourself, you're not going to get that. And a good wife is the best thing that you'll ever find, but you have to be at the right place at the right time. You have to look in the right places, right? I think not everybody thinks about that. It's like Susan said, I'll meet them wherever. I'll go with my guys. We'll go to a bar or a club, and that's not where you meet nice girls, right? But people have misconceptions about that. But this is where, if you want it to happen organically, the only organic thing that you could do is work on yourself. But the other organic things that you can do is start to put on different lenses, right? Like beer, when they say they have goggles on, or what's called beer goggles on. But you have to have different kinds of goggles on. You have to have Christ goggles on, because you're going to look for different things. I think if you're looking for what the world tells you to look for, she's got to look a certain way, she's got to treat you a certain way. But if you look at what God wants you to look for, sometimes those things are not as glamorous, but they are lasting. They are things that will stand the test of time more. Okay. So for example, there's things such as the dating sites that Susan's mentioned. not all of them are created equal, right? I know when I was younger, there were fewer of these dating sites, and you had to actually like put your information and what you're like and what you want in a person and what's your education and what's this and what's that. I feel like now the new age is just like, do you like how they look? You do? Swipe this way or that way, right? It's not very deep, and it's not pushing people to know each other in a deeper way. And so you get people who are like, okay, I'll go on 100 dates, and hopefully from those 100 dates, I'll find one, person that isn't a loser. And that's a very weird way to go about like trying to find the right person, right? So I feel like we have to curate where are we looking, and what kind of person are we looking for, and are we looking for someone of substance or just someone that looks a certain way, right? And then you swipe this way or that way, but that's garbage. You're going to find garbage on there, and that means that you don't have very high standards for yourself. So
Can I jump in there for a sec?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't think that, I think what George is saying is that it depends really on the site. But if you think about it this way, if there's not only one person out there for you, right? If there's a pool of people, then it might not be a bad idea to widen that pool. And so I think what we're both saying is that it's not wrong to go on dating sites. It's actually widening your pool to be able to meet people from different places that may have shared, a basis that you're looking for as well. But it really depends on the attitude in which you go in with. Just like anything in life, the attitude in which you approach whatever XYZ dating site is really what matters. The attitude in which you go about trying to find that person is what matters.
Yeah, we'll go to Steve.
Okay.
All right, so I'm not going to make a lot of friends after this part because I just say it how it is and I don't care how people think. I'm already married. I have nothing to worry about, right? But my opinions on this are strong, and I feel how I feel. So you're welcome to challenge me on it. And some of them are so that some men are afraid of commitment. And I feel like that's true. Some men are afraid of commitment, and I don't think that women make it any better, because if you can be with a woman and you don't have to be married, then why be married, right? Why all the responsibility? And so if women in general are going to make it easy for men to be in a relationship without any commitment, then a lot of men will take that avenue. If that avenue was not available, men would be lined up to get married, right? So I think women are the gatekeepers. You have to have your threshold be very, your demands are very high, and if you do that, then you will find better quality men come and talk to you. The men will have to become better quality men to come talk to you, right? But I think if this easy come, easy go, we're all gonna date and have fun, it just leads a lot of guys to take the easy road of, well, why should I commit? Why should I take on all this responsibility? And it is a lot of responsibility. I remember before I got married, I was shaking in my boots for a couple weeks from before, that all this responsibility that I'm gonna have, and how am I gonna do it, and how am I gonna pay the bills, and oh my God, and now I'm responsible for another person. And so it's not an easy thing, but if the easy way out is that people out there will just let you date with no consequence or with no commitment required, then they will take that. So yes, some men are afraid of commitment, but at the same time, I think a lot of men are afraid of commitment because it might be the wrong person. So again, if dating is so easy to do, and especially within our community, then you will get someone who will date you, but they might just be dating you. They might not be ready for anything more than that. So I think by telling people that, look, I'm not dating unless I know that we're going somewhere with this, that we're not just messing around, I think it'll weed out a lot of the bad characters. So a lot of people will be like, oh, well, I'm not going there, so I'll just back away from this. And And so the other thing is that men are attracted to, and I'm telling, I hope men agree with me, and I hope the women can hear this. Men are attracted to the nurturing side of women, right? I think a guy wants somebody who is nurturing, caring, soft, loving, right? I think a lot of the jargon in the world right now is if you want to be like a strong, independent woman and you're not going to let somebody do this to you and talk like that to you, and you're going to show them. And I think it's like bringing out an aggressive side to women that I don't think there's an attraction to from the guy's side. That's not what the guy is looking for, and I don't think that's what God asks of women to do or women to be. And so, so men react to how you make them feel. So a lot of times, if you're trying to win over a man, win over how you make them feel. If you make them feel respected, if you make them feel loved, if you make them feel like you admire them, all of those things are probably way more valuable than even men know. It's like a subconscious thing. That's like, oh, I don't know why, but I like that girl because she honors me, respects me, talks to me in a certain way. And I've seen a lot of guys where it's like, oh, wow, I didn't know that he would marry her, but I know why he would marry her. Like, it's like, oh, it's for that non-tangible thing.
So going back to like all men are, we're talking about the myths of dating. So the myth is these overgeneralizations like all men are afraid of commitment or all men can't handle a strong woman. And so what we're saying is that it's really not about that. It's not about that they can't handle a strong woman. It's that that dynamic of Abby versus Jezzy, we'll call it that. The Abigail versus the Jezebel in the Bible. Abigail with David in the Bible was a strong woman, but one who won over her man by being able to quietly, logically, respectfully talk him through his decision making and empowered him to become the strong man that he is, that potential inside of him. And Jezebel with King Ahab was pretty conniving, also a strong woman, but did it in a very conniving way. And, kind of like got everyone like kind of to rally up to like make this decision without like the king really being on board. And so I think the problem comes when women rob the man out of their opportunity to be a leader. So it's not that men can't handle a strong woman or don't want a strong woman, they only want someone who's subservient or a domesticated wife. It's not about that. It's about the fact that God has placed inside of each man this little seed of desire to lead. And it's up to us as women to nurture that, to water that, to encourage, to ask open-ended questions, to build up our man, right, in order for him to take the reins of that leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. I think someone make the mistake of, I'll show him, I'll do it better. I'll show him, I'll tell him that he's doing it wrong. I'll show him, I'll jab at him in public, and then he'll know that he made a mistake. And all of those things are, you're breaking the foundation of that other person. You're breaking them down, right? Instead of what Susan said was building them up and helping them with their faults. So you might even see their faults, but you don't, instead of focusing on that, you're focusing on how to encourage and build. So a lot of being a couple is about building each other up and not breaking each other down. And I think when I see couples who, especially in public, it really like hurts to see this, like picking on each other or putting each other down or nitpicking at what the other person's doing. I'm like, oh, that just looks painful, right? And I can only imagine what's happening behind closed doors if they're doing this in front of everybody. But that couple is not setting themselves up for something good. They're actually, they're like breaking the foundation of their own relationship with these little words that can deteriorate the strength of the relationship. And what Susan was saying was, men were born and wired to lead. Now, whether they really want to be the leaders of a big army, or they just want to be the leader of their own household, but they have that innate desire to lead. And I know that some women also have a desire to lead and are very strong women, but it's to your detriment to push down the other party, the man. So if your man is not a strong man, that doesn't mean that you're like, okay, then now get out of my way and I'm gonna lead the both of us. No, you try to build that guy up. You try to help him become a leader. And by doing that, I think both parties will be happier for it. The guy will be happy that the wife treats him that way, and the wife will be happy that she doesn't have a child, because if you do tell that person, take a back seat because you don't know what you're doing and I'll show you that I can do it better, well, okay, eventually you're training that spouse to be a child because you want to do it for them. So
I can jump
so
in.
yeah?
Yeah, I can jump in.
Go ahead.
When that kind of situation happens, you can look at the example of Adam and Eve in the garden. The temptation of a woman to become controlling is unreal. I don't know what happens, right? We're like, oh yeah, honey, whatever you want, right? And then all of a sudden you get married, you just like want to control everything. Sometimes it just happens. Like, women are competent and they like kind of get in this controlling mode. And so a man's response to a controlling woman is passivity. So when Eve was like, yeah, let's take this apple, come on, Adam, here, let's take it, right? He became passive. And so this very thing that we do not find attractive in a male, we kind of push them to. Because some men will kind of stand up and say, hey, I have a desire to lead. But most of the time, what ends up happening when a woman takes charge and starts to be too controlling is a man just sits back and says, all right, do what you want. And then you have this passive controlling kind of dynamic that is not attractive to either party.
So you heard it from her mouth. Eve got us kicked out of it, out of Eden. This is what happens when you become too passive. And there is some truth to that. I think guys who start taking too passive of a role do end up where they don't want to be, right? But it happens from the beginning. You can't be 5 years into it and say, George, what do I do? I'm so passive. Can I now do something different? No, you should have defended your territory from day one. But a woman who's a little too aggressive is a deterrent. So yes, guys don't mind if a woman is a strong, independent woman who has a great job and is very successful and this and that. That's not a bad thing. But a person who's aggressive about it or mean about it or trying to put the other person down, saying, oh, look how much I make, look how far along I am, look at this, look at that. It's a little bit too aggressive. So it's a good thing that you have all those things and we want those things, but to be humble about it, like you'd want anybody to be humble, a man or a woman, is very important. So for a man, men want a few key things. If you give him these few things, ladies, he will be a very happy man no matter what else is going on. So one of the big ones is respect. I think when a man is not respected, when he's disrespected, he just doesn't feel loved. He's like, you could say, if you say I love you, but then in front of my friends disrespect me, I don't feel loved. I think that you were just lying about saying I love you, right? It's respect for them is a very big component. It's kind of like the leadership one, is if you're disrespecting me, there's no way that you love me. Then what you're saying you love me, but that's a fake I love you because you totally disrespect me. And then to honor them is a big one. So respect and honor. So putting them up, being respectful of them. And then in marriage, being there for them mentally and physically and all these things. I think if you just give a man a few items, they're very simple people, they're very happy, right? I think there's not a big long laundry list for us, but honor and respect are two of the top ones. I think men can put up with a lot if they feel respected and if they feel appreciated for what they're doing. But if they don't have those two things, they mentally check out really quickly.
All right. So, just to keep you guys on your toes, how many myths do we have? How How many myths are we going to cover? 7. Good job. Okay, here we are, number 4. Now we're going to rag on the women just a little bit. So again, we're talking about the myths of dating. So all women are, and these are overgeneralizations, right? All women are crazy. All women play games. All women want men to be rich and established already. All women are controlling, or they talk too much, or they gossip. I mean, honestly, a lot of these things can be very true, right? Sometimes women are crazy, and sometimes men are crazy. Sometimes a lot of us are crazy. You got to find the crazy that works and and find that person, right? But a lot of these stereotypes are rooted in our like base desire. Just like George had said, and actually it comes straight from the Bible, that a woman's base desire, like if you look at any argument any couple has ever had, it always boils down to one of two things. Either a woman feels like she doesn't have love or the loving feelings of her mate, or the man doesn't have respect. The woman has a core need of love, and the man has that core need of respect. To go, just to piggyback off of what George was saying, like one time we were probably newly married, and we were out and we were talking with friends, and then he was talking about his car, and I was like, oh no, babe, that's not how it was, no. And I corrected him in the middle of his story and like kept interjecting. And then anyways, we got home and I was like, oh, and he was so upset. I was like, what's wrong? He's like, you totally disrespected me in front of everyone. I'm like, what? No, it's just you said the story wrong. I was just correcting all the little details in between. He's like, no, I felt completely, I just felt like just completely disrespected in the midst of that interaction. And so, again, any of these like things that like these things that come out to be disagreements or arguments or problems come from that like that expectation that we have to based on our core desires. So going back to some of these myths about women, I don't know where they came from, but there's a lot of truth in each of them, but it also comes from our desires. And so one of them that I had mentioned is that, you know, women just talk too much. Women love to gossip. And that is partially based in some truth, in that women process differently than males do. Everyone is wired, or male and female are completely wired differently. No matter how much we say we're all equal, we are equal, but we're not the same. We're wired differently. A woman is wired, and of course these are again generalizations, not all women, but we'll say upwards to 80% of women need to process things by processing their feelings out loud, by processing their thoughts out loud. I'll have a friend come over and we'll be chatting and talking and whatever and talking about all these problems, and by the end of the 2-hour session, George is like, what happened here? Like, you guys didn't come to any solutions. You just talked around the problem for 2 hours, and then this person left, and both of you guys feel a lot better, but I have a headache. Like, what? And he tries to jump in with solutions, and I'm like, no. We don't need that. We don't need any of that logic stuff. And that's because that's how women process. And so while men retreat to a cave to kind of process on their own, women need to talk out loud. Doesn't mean that women need to gossip. That's just something that is something that we do that might not be correct. Women are too emotional. Yeah. If you look at how a woman is wired, emotionally, the way in which we see the world and our emotional intelligence is a lot higher. We could be with our friends, same kind of situation, and like we'll leave, and when I get to the car, I'm like, whoa, I could feel the tension in the room. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, we had a great time. I'm like, no, like, you didn't feel that between the girl, there was like so much tension there, because we can kind of read between the lines and feel these emotional things. Now, all of these differences between a man and a woman, they can actually help us get closer if we realize that we're just built differently, and that this dynamic, this difference between us can help a man become a little bit more emotionally in tune, if we're able to kind of meet in between.
So, is it true, do you think, that women want a man who is financially stable, right? Women, raise your hands. Do you want a man who's financially stable? Higher, so I could see you. Don't be shy. It's okay. All right, those are all the gold diggers. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. But who knows where this movie quote came from? First you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women. Who knows that movie quote? Scarface, right? But, and it's, I think that's a cool movie quote, but I would beg to differ. I think it's actually backwards, right? Let's take it backwards. What if it was first you get the woman, then you get the power, then you together get the money, right? So I think that's the way that it would actually work, right? When I had, there were these people that I knew at our church when I was growing up, and there were these two servants, and they were probably our age when we were younger, and it was really nice because they'd say that, oh, as one of them got let's say their first bachelor's degree, the other one was working to support them. Then when that person got their degree, then the other one went and got their bachelor's degree while that one was working, right? And then when they both had bachelor's degrees, then one of them went to go get a master's while only one of them supported. And then they did this till they both had PhDs, right? And I was like, wow, they both, and it didn't matter man or woman, supported the family at any given time in different people would support. And even for our relationship, when we first got married, she didn't have a job. She was in school, and I was making pennies. But then when she got out of school, she right away made very good money. And I was like, oh my God, this feels weird. I've married a sugar mama, but she's the one supporting us. And for a man, that made me feel very belittled, right? And so she was the best wife ever. She would always say, no, it's about how hard you're working. I can see that you're working so hard. And so that's a way in which she built me up instead of tore me down. And it gave me the encouragement to keep working really hard until I could achieve what I wanted to achieve, right? And so I think a lot of people go into it thinking that I'm going to find a guy or maybe find a woman that's pre-built. I want them pre-assembled. I want the Lego set, right? But instead of open the box and build it, I want to open the box and find that car already built for me, right? But that's not, I think, how God intended it. God intended that you build together, grow together. I think, Abuna, you're the one who said that if you wait too long, right, for marriage, you start to think too much with your logic and no emotion at all and no love behind it. It's just you're too logical and nobody meets all the needs, and so eventually at some point you don't even want to get married, right? So if you're too young, you might be too illogical, and if you're past a certain age, you might be too logical and love is not for you, right? So there's a sweet spot. But the idea is, I think personally that getting married younger, with some maturity and some guidance, but getting married on the younger side allows you to build together, grow together, conquer mountains together, right? Two people can conquer a lot more than one. Two people can get a lot further than one. And I think that's a misconception. Guys have this big thing looming over their heads where they're like, no, I have to make it before she'll even talk to me. I have to be this person. I have to, have this much money to afford this wedding, fancy wedding that she wants. And those are all really bad hurdles. So instead of focusing on being a better person and being the best quality person you can be, you're worried about, your finances and becoming wealthy in order to get somebody to talk to you. So I don't think that that's God's way. I don't think that's our way. I don't think that is even the right way. So a lot of people that I know who have gotten far in life, they've gotten there together. They have not gotten there alone. I think that's a misconception that, I'm going to marry a rich man or marry a rich woman, right? I think the idea more should be, do I see the building blocks in their personality, in their heart, in their mind of a person who has just the basic building blocks of the right kind of person. They're ambitious, they're motivated, they're strong, they have they have the right makeup of what I'm looking for, but they don't have to already be there. But I see in them the basic building blocks, and I'm going to, like a Lego set, I'm going to help them build that amazing achievement, and we'll do it together. So I think we're looking more for solid character than for solid financial statement, right? I think that's a misconception. So even though for ladies it gives them a feeling of security that I'm going to be with somebody who's financially secure, I think you should instead look for, does this person have the ability to one day be financially secure? Do they have the basic building blocks of a good quality like person? And together you can become financially secure. You have to be partners in crime more than just I'm going to piggyback off someone else's success. That doesn't work. And if you do find a guy who's that successful, then they're not going to look at you as somebody they have to keep. You're interchangeable, right? Like, I'm not happy with you today. Okay, I'll get the newest, latest, greatest model. But when you built it together, you need each other. You are part of the same foundation. I can't remove myself from Susan. I don't know who I'd be without her because we got to where we are together. Whether it's our love life, whether it's our financial life, our children, everything. We've done it together. So that's why I said if you're waiting too long because you want to fulfill something like that movie quote, right? Then that's not the right reason to be waiting, right? If you're waiting for the right person, that's the right reason to be waiting. If you're waiting because you're working on yourself in the meantime, that's the right reason to be waiting. If you're waiting because you're worried about financial stuff, that's not good. So that's for the guys to hear that. Don't wait on your financial readiness. And for ladies, I would really, really hope that you're not making the bar in that department really hard, because I remember I had a friend one time, and if you know this person, please don't say names. I had this friend one time where she had very high expectations of what her wedding should look like. And there were a lot of guys that came and went because when they got to be with her, heard her very harsh wedding requirements, like it has to be this many people, it's going to cost us this much, it's going to be this, and it was like such a big burden. A lot of guys just tapped out. They're like, they were even engaged, and there's no, I'm leaving. I can't. I didn't know you were this crazy. Like, this is too much, So I think we have to, in our community, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the women are almost like competing with each other on how grand their weddings have to be, or if they all want to just be at the same level. But it's a level. There's a certain level of ring and wedding and where we're going to go vacation afterwards and where we're going to live. And it's like the guys are just like scared. They're like, oh, Egyptian women are just very, it's like a little princess. I can't afford a princess, right? So I think you have to know that when you're finding a guy, you're finding the basic building blocks of a good quality man, and work with that, and don't worry about that he has to already be financially stable or that you have to have a dream life from the very first day, which is the wedding day. It has to be a dream. I think we can work towards our goals together and not expect so much difficult things of each other. The guys should expect less when it comes to certain things, and this is one department where I feel like the girls should have a little bit more realistic goals so that you could find a good quality person, not just somebody with a certain financial statement, right? So that's my 2 cents on that department.
Okay. Myth number 5. I need to find out if we're compatible physically, right? And so this statement would have a lot of credence if sexual chemistry and physical compatibility was a predictor of marital success, right? If you could gauge how well a marriage was doing after 20 years, or 10 years, 20 years, by the amount of chemistry between them, then great. Yes, we need to find out before you're married if you're physically compatible together. But actually, this is a zero predictor of success. It doesn't have any bearing, really, on marital satisfaction 10, 20, 30 more years later. And it's a problem because we're starting to delay marriage more and more and more, and there are God-given desires that are built inside of us. And so it's harder and harder to wait. If you think about this word picture, or this kind of, this picture of this cold, snowy night, and you're inside, and there's this beautiful fireplace with a log burning in the fireplace, and you think to yourself, oh, this is wonderful, this is warm, this is toasty, it's providing like light in the home, and it's really nice. But if you think about it, and if you move that log just 5 feet away from the fireplace into the living room, right, that's going to cause your whole house to burn down. It's not the place for the log. It's not the place for the fire. And that is the same with sex and marriage and before marriage. We all know that it's something that the Bible says is wrong. And yet, in God's wisdom, He very clearly states that, right? Through His words in the Bible, that fornication is wrong. And yet, we seem to think that taking the log out of the fireplace and putting it in the living room is going to be just as good. But in His wisdom, He knows that this is a myth, because there is something that physically, chemistry, brain chemistry happens when you have physical relations with someone, whether it starts with kissing or moving on or getting to the act of sex. It's over at that point, especially for a woman. Their endorphins and their oxytocin levels, like their brain releases all of this, not neurons, but anyways, all this like brain chemistry, right? And so they create this attachment to the guy. And they're like, I have found the love of my life. I can't believe it. Like, I happened to find him, and he's right here. And now she is bonded to him. And no longer can she see clearly if this is actually the person that will be right for her. She can no longer see clearly if this person is going to be a good father to her future children, or if this person is going to be a good leader of our Christian little household that we're about to start, or if this person is going to, hold his tongue when he's upset, when he's angry. You're blind to all of that. And that is because behind all of that neurochemistry is the idea of infatuation. And infatuation is this like intense feelings of love that bonds you to a person. And it usually lasts about a year, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more, about a year and a half into a relationship, where it's like, you don't understand, I'm in love with this person. And when you're physically with them, it just completely bonds you to that person without really even getting to the point where if you realize like, oh, wait a second, is this person even worth pursuing or not?
Yeah, I think for us, it is important to be attracted to the person, but it is deceiving when the world tells you no, but you have to sleep with them to know that if you guys will be physically compatible, right? There's no such thing as physically compatible. It's more about being mentally compatible, because I think for a lot of us, if we are mentally in love with somebody and we feel such a strong connection to them, then it will be great physically too. So I think that the world is trying to get us to do something like to put the horse before the cart or something like that, right? Where they're trying to get you to move it a little too fast. And the problem with that is once you get to that point that Susan said, you feel that attachment. And I think that when you've had that attachment and you've broken that attachment, and it's, nobody goes into it thinking they're going to do that, but it happens a couple times, it's not, I don't think it's as strong as that, when they say like that puppy love, that first love time, because it's like a piece of tape. If I take a piece of tape and I tape it to my pants, it'll stick pretty well, actually. If I undo it from my pants and I put it back in my pants, it might stick. If I do it again and I do it a third time, it's not going to stick ever again, right? Like, I don't know, I am not like putting undue pressure on anybody who's dated, but it means that we are not built for like dating and dumping, dating and like that's not the rhythm that God wants you to follow. If it's happened to you, that's okay. If you have happened to do that, that's okay. You could always ask God for a restart, but it is not the mode of operation that we should be functioning under, right? Like that's not how real deep love is. And it also teaches you that when you're not happy, you get rid of them. It's not working out, just get rid of them, right? And then you think that that's going to change when, just because you have a ring on your finger. No, if that's your mentality, that when things aren't going well, that you just throw them away, they're disposable, right? It's like a disposable shaving blade. Oh, it's not cutting so well. Okay, toss it out, new one, right? So I don't think that's what God wants for us. And there is an infatuation period, and I think guys are very susceptible to this because they fall in love with what's on the outside. And what they don't realize is that is a very fake, very like surface level, very unimportant part of the equation. I actually feel bad for women that all they have is their beauty, because like right after the guy starts dating you, he knows what he got, and he's, it's not important, the beauty part of it. The beauty part of it is so inconsequential after the beginning. But some guys do get infatuated, and then they see qualities in women that they don't really have, right? Like that. So if a guy thinks a girl is very beautiful, he'll be like, oh, look at how sweet she is. I'm like, are we talking about the same girl? She's not sweet. Like, oh, look how nice she is. Oh, look how smart she is. Like, she's dumb as a doornail. What are you talking about, right? Like, and so I want guys to wake up, like look beyond that infatuation part and see what's really there. You might not be getting much, right? Like, look for something more, right? And so this is a problem with us because we are susceptible to being shallow. Men are very visual, so because we're very visual, we assume that if it visually looks good, then it functions, right? That it works, that it's going to work out. We're going to make it work. She's so beautiful, I don't care if she yells at me and is a horrible personality. Like, we're going to make this work, right? And he realizes very quickly after that he's miserable, right? My dad told me a story about one of his friends in Egypt, that one of his friends, I think his name was like Raouf or something, was dating like our version of like the high school prom queen, right? Like, she was the most beautiful girl in school. And so he met up his old friend years later after high school, and he's like, hey, are you still with her? He's like, yeah, we're married. Oh, you lucky guy. Like, how is it being married to her? He's like, I hate my life. I hate my life. And he's like, why? Why? You're married to the prettiest girl I've ever seen. And he's like, because she's not nice to me. She's always has a reason to be angry. Every night is a new argument. And so it shows that he was fooled by the beauty, and he didn't get very much for it because he allowed himself to be fooled by the exterior, which is, again, very surface level and very meaningless. So I think, sometimes people look into things too much. I think sometimes the same thing can be interpreted two different ways. So if you're a girl and a guy, picks up something for you and follows you to your table and is like, here, you left this at, over here, and you're like, oh, how sweet, like, that was so nice of him. And why? Because you think he's attractive. It was a sweet gesture. If a guy that you didn't think was attractive did that, you're like, hey, get away from me, stalker. Like, people they put different perceptions on the same action, right? Like, and so it shows that we are biased, men or women, to what we see. Like, if the person is good looking, we'll attribute motives and attribute qualities to that person that they don't have. And so we have to ask God to help us through that and to look for the right things and to look past the facade, right? So a lot of times guys are so good, some guys are so good at winning over girls, and they're like hunters. They I'm gonna hunt her down, I'm gonna make her love me, I'm gonna do all this stuff. Stop and think, is this somebody that's worth all this? You should focus your effort where it's needed, not just because you want to win, right? Not just because this is the person you think you want. And, is somebody worth it or not is a big deal. Before I met Susan, I wouldn't even talk to anybody because I'd be like, no, not worth my time, not worth my time, not worth my time. To the point where I had my own family saying, is something wrong with you? Why don't you want to date anybody? And my own family was passing around rumors oh, is George gay or something? Why doesn't he want to date anybody? No, I have high standards. I will not talk to you if I don't see a future with you. Why should I even talk to you? right? So I think that we should all be like that. We should have such high standards that if it's not worth our time, it's not worth our time. We're not playing games with each other. And a lot of times we hurt one another in this process. Sometimes you might be having fun and they might be having a broken heart. It's not good to do that to one another. So you want to go on to the next one?
Okay. Number 6 myth. He is not my type, or she is not my type. And so the problem with that mentality or thinking is that you automatically put someone in a box. Whatever qualities they have, you're like, well, that's not my type. So you're really limiting someone to a specific category. Whether it's like, they're a little too chunky, or they're a little too fobby, or they're a little too churchy, or they're a little too mushy, or whatever it is, right? We just sum up the whole of who someone is into one little box, in one little category. To have a checklist of things that you want in the opposite sex, that makes sense. But it's important to have a distinction between preferences and deal breakers, right? It's okay to have preferences, but they can't be the main criteria in which you judge someone on. So, 6 feet tall or above, that's a preference. Like, nice car, or makes me feel a certain way, or is really suave when he talks to people, that's a preference. It's not a deal breaker. How they respond to other people when they're angry, or, what do they see in their future about like their church attendance and how much they really want to incorporate like the life of the church in their lives, like that can be a deal breaker. So I think everybody kind of has to weigh out what are their own personal preferences versus deal breakers. But it's really important to distinguish between both. Mm-hmm.
All right, all we need is love. So just because you love someone does not mean they're the right person. Sometimes our hearts can be deceived. Sometimes we're just stupid, right? Like we're not always that brilliant. Sometimes we are deceived, right? So like Susan said, they know how to say the right things, they know how to wear the right stuff, they know how to whatever, right? And then we feel that feeling of love or infatuation, and that's not a good solid foundation to be like, I'm going to start a marriage with that person because I'm infatuated with them. So don't ignore logic. Logic is really huge, and I feel like a lot of people ignore the signs, ignore the logic, ignore wisdom coming from their friends and family, and they're just, right, I'm just in love. And we've all met that person where you meet them and you talk to them and you're like, I don't think you should be with that person. They're like, I know, but I'm in love. Especially girls, but I'm in love. And you're like, oh, you're in for a world of hurt. This is not going to go well for you because you care about that feeling of love, but love comes and goes. The feeling of love comes and goes. So I had a friend, and she was a very godly person. She came to church a lot. She loved God. I knew she loved God. She was very passionate about God, but she was having a hard time finding a person. So instead of widening her vision to more guys, instead she doubled down on the wrong move, right? So she was she called her, she baptized the situation. So she met a guy. He is Coptic, but he did not have the characters that I would have hoped for her, right? So it was what, does he go to church? What church does he go to? She's like, yeah, well, and when it starts with the he used to go to church, but he doesn't go anymore because he doesn't like this abuna or that person. And oh yeah, he's he goes sometimes, Easter and Christmas he goes, and it just all the excuses started coming out, and oh, okay, well, and what's this like, and what's that like? And I felt like she was compromising after compromise, especially in the department of, and she was very much in love with God. So, and it was very weird to me that why is my best friend compromising on this very important like subject in her life. And that's where she was compromising. And I was like, oh, this is like really bad. And then I met this person. He's not a bad person, but he was not a godly person. And he's not a bad person, but because he's not godly, I also saw how he treated her, which was kind of so-so. And I'm like, are you sure you want to be with this guy? Like, he doesn't fit the characteristics of what I would have hoped for you. I'm just like your older brother. I just want the best for you. And it really hurt me to see that, because I really love her. I want the best for her. And I would have rather her be with someone in the church who really loved God, because when a man loves God, he treats a woman differently. When a man loves God, he thinks of marriage differently. When a man loves God, he does a lot of things differently. So I wanted that for her. I wanted somebody who was like a strong man, but a strong man who loved God. So that's one of the situations of how we can sometimes lie to ourselves to make ourselves feel better. Yeah, I know that this person's not great for me, but and it might be subliminal. You might be feeling like, I'm just lonely and this is the first person who's come and talked to me in a while, so I'm just going to make it work. And so be willing to have difficult conversations up front. So there's two kinds of difficult conversations. One is be humble enough so that when people in your life, it could be your friends, could be your parents, could be Abuna, could be a lot of people who genuinely care about you and genuinely have your best intentions in mind. When they tell you, and they're going to try to be nice to you because they don't want to hurt your feelings, like, hey, hi, like, are you sure? And be willing to listen. A lot of us are very against somebody coming and talking to us about, it's a sensitive subject. We don't want to hear about it. If someone's trying to tell us like, hey, look, this is not the right person for you, or this is not the right situation for you, a lot of us want to turn a blind eye. We get offended, and I can't believe you said that, and I thought you were my friend, I thought you loved me. Yes, they do, and that's why they're talking to you. Like, be willing to listen. The other difficult conversation is, once you are with a person, and one of my aunts told me this, and she's not Egyptian, she's Hispanic. So one of my aunts is Hispanic, and she had some great wisdom for me when I was engaged to Susie. She's like, ask as many difficult questions to Susie as you can. Think of the most random and most difficult things for her to answer, and ask it, as many as you can. I was like, why, Aunt Betty? Why am I going to put her through this? And she's like, because once you get married, you are married. There is no more turning back. There's no more asking. Well, you can't leave them for these things. So the meaning was ask her, how many children do you want? Where do you want to live? Are we going to live next to your parents or mine? Are we going to, what if I had to move for work? Would you move with me? What if when we do have kids, who's going to be the one to discipline them? Will you be upset if I discipline them and I spank them? This and that. Ask all kinds of weird and difficult questions, because you need to know what you're getting into. A lot of people, again, are just so happy to be in love that they're not looking at what they're getting or how that person is. So a lot of people that I know did not ask enough questions, and now they're getting surprised. Whether it's a good surprise or a bad one, it's a surprise. When you did not ask all these questions, you don't know how they feel about some of these very difficult subjects. You should know. You want to know. And a lot of times, I think that, so we talked about for men, for women, I think women have this hope that a man will change for them. He's going to love me, he's going to change. I know he's been like this in the past, but for me, he's going to change. No, he's not. You need to know that yes, you can grow together, but you cannot take a sheep and turn him into a lion. You cannot take a lion and turn him into a salamander, right? You can grow and improve one another, but you cannot completely change somebody. So that fantasy of, he was this way and something really bad, but now he's going to change for me, that's a very dangerous thought. Because yes, a lot of guys can tell you what you want to hear. If you want to hear that, they'll tell you that, right? Or they'll make you feel that. But if you're looking for someone who has your best intention in mind, who loves you so deeply, look for that from the get-go. Don't say, oh, he's a jerk, but I'm going to change him. He'll change for me. Like, you want somebody, if he loves God from the beginning. You want somebody that if he's a nice, good quality person, he's that from the beginning. Yes, you can grow and you can like get better, but at the same time, you're looking for those, remember we said the basic building blocks. And yes, like you can't compare like someone who's in their 20s to someone who's in their 40s, someone in their 60s, meaning that maybe if you hear like someone speak like I'm in my 40s and I give a talk, I'm like, see, I want someone wise. It's like, okay, yes, there could be someone in their 20s who is wise, and it just looks different. You have to look for basic building blocks, depending on your age and what you're looking for. Everybody's different, but you're looking for those basic building blocks. It'll look different at each age range, but it doesn't have to be like that person is already pre-assembled and ready to go, and it doesn't have to be that they don't even have the basic hardware to work with. So you're going to look for many things that are shared between you guys, shared morals, shared values, shared interests, shared loves, but you want to find that in someone who's kind of walking the path you're walking. You cannot take somebody, like I was telling you about my friend, who took a guy that was walking a totally different path and say, I'm going to have him walk on my path. Because more likely than not, you're going to be dragged down more than, it's harder to pull somebody up than to drag somebody down.
There was this last little illustration in the book, Sacred Search. Gary Thomas was just talking about, like, he was talking to his friend, and his friend was saying, like, it's so hard to find someone, and, I just don't know exactly what to look for and all this stuff. He was just saying, like, look, it's like as if you're like, you're running towards God. Like you're running, and you're running as fast as you can, and you look to your left and you look to your right, and whoever else is running as fast as you are, you take them and you run together. That's just like a little word picture, but I would argue that who you marry really is one of the most important decisions in your life, and it can lead you to a life of peace and joy, or really to a miserable existence. And so with that, it's an encouragement to look for the things that really do matter, and to seek first the kingdom of God, and then really everything else will be added. Glory be to God forever. Amen.
You can give us the ones that are the ones or the ones that are.
You guys can look through and answer the
Yeah, give us a second as we read.
So we want to be mindful of time. I'll have the speakers filter through the questions. Again, if we don't get through all of them next week and all the weeks after, we have lots of opportunities to ask. And they're all anonymous, by the way, so please send them in.
Here, let me answer the first one while Susie reads on. So I'll do this one. So what are the obligations of men is being asked. So I know that there's a lot of things being required for women, and I think that the obligations for men should be just as high, if not higher. I think men should hold themselves to a high standard that we used to hold ourselves to. So I, like a traditionalist, I think that a man should be a man, but that means a lot, and that means a lot of responsibility. So men should be able to take on tremendous amounts of responsibility, and that's what men are built for. And so I feel like when that being said, you feel responsible for others is when I say that. You feel responsible for others, meaning I feel responsible for Susie's well-being and her happiness, and also that she's taken care of and she's safe and she's this and that. And I feel that, of course, in extension to my children, I feel tremendous responsibility for my children. And then on top of that, I feel tremendous responsibility of our future, right? So that are we going to be okay in the future, and what can I do for that? And that's not just future financially. That is actually more of if I died today, do my kids know how to live a good godly life? Will they be good, strong men and women? For men, that feeling of responsibility is lacking today. I feel like guys are just taking the easy road, right? And I feel like if you want to be a good quality man, and a good quality man so you'll attract a good quality woman, being able to be super responsible and willing to take on the burden of others is a key role. That you're not selfish, you're giving, right? So you're not selfish with your time, with your resources, with your abilities, that you care and put each other before yourself. So if a woman's looking for the correct man, she's looking for a man who has that as one of the many things, but I think that's one big one, is that he is a very responsible, caring person who can shoulder a lot of things. Because even when Susan met me, I was shouldering different things. Like I was maybe taking care of a Bible study. Maybe I was taking care of my family or my little brother. Maybe I was taking care of like whatever responsibilities were given to me in college or whatever it might have been. It's this man holds himself to a high standard. This man cares about others. This man puts others before himself. This man will put me and my future children before himself, right? Someone who's very self-centered, man or woman, stay away from them because it's all about them. It's all about their own happiness, and you have to fill that void of happiness. So you want someone who's the opposite of that, who's looking to shoulder things instead of and take care of others before themselves. So I think that's what men should do to work and be working on, is taking on more responsibility and being less selfish.
The other part of that question, what do women need from men? Just to like piggyback on that, women need someone who's going to love them. Women need someone who's going to listen to them, to appreciate them, to cherish them, to continue to pursue them even after they've gotten them. A lot of times men pursue women, and then once they've gotten them, okay, they move on to their next goal. But women need that continual care. Okay. Due to our culture, my whole life I've known nothing but school, work, and church. How exactly do I approach the opposite sex and let them know I'm interested? I think we need to be kind of open to each other, right? So we're all adults. We're all at an age where we know it's not wrong to date. It's okay to approach the opposite sex. Women need to be a little bit more open to guys coming and talking to them, and just have an initial conversation. If you guys like what you see, what you hear, ask them to continue the conversation at coffee. Girls, don't play so hard to get that it's like, or you're so like high and mighty that people can't even approach you. Be approachable, go, talk, and then if you continue the conversation over coffee, if it goes well, ask to go out again. In the version of this talk that was given in Canada, the original relationship series that happened there, I was watching that talk, and they have the whole flow chart of like how guys should ask girls out and how girls need to be receptive to it, and is it wrong for the girl to ask the guy out? And the answer is, look, if you guys, if you have a conversation with someone, if you like them, ask him out. If it's not wrong for the girl to ask him out, ask a guy out, to say like, hey, you want to go get coffee? Hey, do you want to, meet up after this? But I would caution the girl to refrain from robbing the guy of that opportunity to lead, because that's one of the things that we are kind of looking for, even in the beginning talks of a relationship. Just because you go out with someone and you go have coffee and you realize, we're a little different, or this is not exactly, what I thought, that's okay. It's not going to ruin your reputation. It's okay. Come back, talk to the next girl. Not like a little, okay, next, not like that. But how else are you going to get to know people unless you have conversations and you approach them? But I would say, girls, try to be more approachable.
All right, this is another one. It says, what are good practices to utilize in the dating world? Should we only date church folks? So one of the things that we should do is, it's a different frame of mind, right? And for guys, it's being less selfish. So the idea behind it is I am now looking only if this person, from my interactions with them, and hopefully you've had some interactions, it's not just a passerby, that you see there are some initial qualities that could lead to marriage. If you do not see that, you're just playing games, right? If you're just dating for the fun of dating. So try to tell yourself, I'm not dating for the fun of dating. And if I am dating, I'm dating with an intention. I'm dating with, there's a reason. I'm not just dating to pass the time, right? So if guys do that, that's one thing, is just change your mindset to, I am, like I told you about myself, people thought I was weird because I wasn't just dating for the fun of dating. But that is a good thing because that left me open to meet Susan. What if I was dating for the fun of dating and then I happened to be dating someone? When I bumped into her, she'd be like, oh, don't want anything to do with that guy, right? So I had to be available for my perfect person. If I wasn't available, then I might be missing out, right? So I might not have clarity there. The other thing is, should we only be dating church folks? That's a tough subject for me to talk about, but I think that they have to be godly, very godly. As the more the better, because the more God they have in their life, the more Jesus is a part of their life, the better, and truly have a relationship, not just that they come and take communion. I think that's like a great start, but that's not like going to make a good quality person. They have to have a real intimate love for God and real intimate love for Jesus. I hope everyone agrees. And that's what really, to me, makes a difference, not church. You come to church, that's great. It's a good start. But if you're not like in love with God, then I don't care that you come to church. You're still not the right person for me, personally. And if you don't even go to church and you don't even love God, in my books, I think if you're here, it means you should stay away from those people. That's just my thought. If you're here, because I assume you love God and you want to see what God thinks, that's what God would say. I remember one time I was tempted to date somebody who was not from my church and not from our religion even. And I was like, oh God, what do I do? Like, this beautiful girl wants to date me and it's very tempting and I don't know what to do. Like, God, please speak to me. So I went home and I was like, God, I don't even know what to read in the Bible. I have no idea. And I was really young. I was probably like 20 years old. I was like, God help me. So I just like opened up the book, right? And it took me to the Old Testament. And I read the chapter that was there in front of me. And it was all about the people of God should not intermingle and marry the people of another culture. So I was like, oh, okay, God. It just was magic. God sent the right, passage that I need to read. I was like, I guess I have my answer, because I was torn. So no, if they're not church folks, don't. I'm not sure what the details are, so ask Abuna more details, but generally, if they don't love God and they don't love Jesus, that to me is the biggest red flag.
The next question, how should I treat my brother and his girlfriend if I think they're not compatible and they keep breaking up and getting back together? Honestly speaking, we only really have control over ourselves. We don't have control over others, but we do have influence. We can have influence, and we can have love towards those people, including our brothers. So in similar situations, what we have done is asked, continue to show our brother that love and ask a lot of open-ended questions. So, how did you feel after this situation? What's important for you in a marriage relationship? What is this going to look like after 5 years? Or if you guys do end up getting married and you have a child, how are you going to talk to them and counsel them in this kind of situation? And asking a lot of open-ended questions in love towards your brother, so that hopefully you can get him to think about these things and then come up to a conclusion on his own. I wouldn't lose the relationship between you and your brother because you disagree with his choice of mate.
Yeah, so I'm getting two different questions here that are kind of similar, which is most of the girls raised their hands when they were asking for a if I was asking if they wanted a financially stable guy. So kind of like they're calling BS on I don't have to be financially stable when looking for a girl. I'll tell you, I'm reading a book right now called Mastery. It's about how to become like the master in your field, how to become the best at your field. And it's saying that most people need, I think it was like 7 to 10 years to become the master of their field, to become really good at their field, right? It's not easy and it's not overnight that somebody would become the best that they can become in their field. But if I were to ask the ladies in the audience, if there was a guy who had no money in his pocket, but was in his last 2 years, I guess 2 more years of residency, and then he will be a doctor, would you consider talking to him? He's broke now. He's really broke. But would you consider just, would you talk to him, or because he's not rich today, he's a no-go? Raise your hand. Would you talk to him? Yes? Yes. Only one girl would talk to this poor guy? Yes, we would. So it means that they're looking for potential. It's not, you don't have to be rich today, right? And I think that's what I want to say to the guys is, look to become the best that you can become, the master of your field. During that time, those 7 to 10 years, you will not be, so even if when the false thing is you're gonna leave college with a bachelor's degree, you're an engineer like Thomas, right? You don't leave and you're instantly rich, right? You just have the degree and now you're practicing, right? It takes 7 to 10 years to become the master of that field, to become like the best engineer in that field. So I think if someone were to meet someone on their way to becoming the best that they can become, I think that's attractive. I don't think you have to be there at this high level, but your trajectory, right? Your trajectory is all that matters. And if somebody doesn't see that, then they're not worth being with. They're not worth being with. If they can't see that you're working hard and you have a trajectory and you're working hard to get there, right? Smart women will look at that guy and be like, oh, he's valuable because, yes, he's not there today, but he's going to be there tomorrow. And those are the people you want to be with anyways, because they can see where this is going to go and what you're working so hard for. The other thing is that they were saying, how can you realistically be with somebody if they're not financially stable? You will be financially stable if you find that person with the basic building blocks, right? This guy who's working so hard but isn't there yet, but you could tell he's going to get there. He's just, give him a few more years. He's on his way. Together, you can have a very simple wedding, right? Together, you can buy a very simple ring. Together, you can live in a very shabby apartment and be super in love. Together, you can get your dream jobs. Together, you will buy your dream house later. Together, you can go buy another ring if they bother to do that much. Together, you can go on fancy vacations a couple years later. That's how life is supposed to work. I feel like women are like, no, I hope they're not like this. But men think in their heads that women are like, no, I need that now. I need the best, the best you can give me now. And I feel like a lot of our parents have spoiled us. Not all of us, but some of our parents have had a good life and God was good to them. So especially with their daughters, they spoil their daughters. So their daughters come up thinking like, oh, everybody's going to spoil me and life will be so magical. I think you need to take it down a notch and say, I want a guy who's going to be amazing and I'm going to reach that pinnacle of happiness together. We're not, he doesn't already have to be there. We're going to walk up Mount Everest together, right? And so I think we have to be okay with a simple beginning. I think it's not going to be so magical, and it could be even rough. Like you could get married and have a hard time paying bills. But that's okay. That's still life. And you could still be super in love while having a hard time paying bills. That's okay. God is not against being broke and married, because he'd rather have that than to be single and living in sin. It's better to be two young people that are both not where they want to be yet. They're going there, but they're not there yet, right? And to be living in a shabby apartment, living broke but super happy and in love, because it's under God's umbrella. That's a better God's umbrella than, oh, I can't find my fantasy man, or I can't find my fantasy girl, or I can't afford for, a fantasy wedding that some girl wants, or I'm not going to settle with some guy who's going to give me a shabby wedding, whatever the preconceived notions you have in your head. And then you're just living possibly in sin, because you, like Susan said, you still have desires and needs, and you want to be loved and this and that, and instead there's going to be somebody who tricks you into giving your best years to them, and they're not even your husband or wife, right? Instead, it's okay to be broke but happy. It's okay to be building each other and building together, and doing it from a younger age or an older age. It doesn't matter what age, but as long as you see that that person has potential. If they have no potential, that's not who I'm talking about. And for the guys, if you're working so hard on yourself, but you're still in the beginning of your career, give yourself a break. And if someone really sees that in you, that you have that potential, then they're the right person to be with. If they can't see that and they only want the person who's already made it, then okay, let them have that person, right? There's that notion of we need to have already a perfect life from the get-go. That's where I feel like people have a hard time seeing someone and saying, I could still make it with them. Because they want, when they say, oh, we're going to make our love story together, it's like a fantasy love story, not a realistic love story. Okay. Anybody have anything?
Thank you both so much for being here tonight. It's been such a beautiful blessing having you both talk. I think what better way to start the series with debunking these myths and getting clarity on relationships. So thank you, Susan and George. By the way, Susan is a mental health professional. George is a mental health advocate and an expert in relationships. As you'll see in the schedule, if you follow us on social media, all the speakers are mental health professionals. Next week we have Maggie Ataya talking about communication and expectation, and she is a psychologist who specializes in couples work. So we're excited for that. We do go live. So I want to thank the speakers. This isn't like a short 1 hour talk, as you can see. It's very fruitful. There's Q&A. So I want you guys to understand moving forward, it's going to be an hour and a half to 2. We'll be very mindful of the time. The other thing is I want to thank the attendees for coming tonight and being here with us. I also want you guys to know these are anonymous questions, so nothing gets revealed. We want this to be a safe environment for you guys to share your questions, and so thank you for having the courage to ask them. And if we didn't get to all of them, again, you'll have the opportunity and you can stick around, and maybe if Susan and George don't leave right away, you guys can talk to them, or Abuna. We do have announcements, so Jen.
Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jennifer Solomon. I see a lot of familiar faces in the room and a lot of new faces in the room. You are all welcome, and we'd love to see you guys throughout the rest of the series. We do have a few events coming up that we just want to put on your radar. The day after tomorrow, Saturday, the October 8th, we have a hike followed by a brunch. We are going to have a carpool option for those of you who want to meet at church and then head over. We're probably going to meet at church at about 9 and be at the location at about 10. We also have a couple of services that we've started and would like to continue, including, you guys may have already heard me give this spiel, but including with Mary Crest Manor, which is a local nursing home here in Culver City. We are invited to spend some time with the residents on October 15th. That is they would just like us to spend, like I said, time with the residents. These are individuals who are older in age and often did not have visitors or a lot of interaction during COVID, so they really just want us to spend some time with them, chat with them, take them out into the garden, play games, watch TV, that sort of thing. That service is capped at 10 people because of the age group of the people that we are serving. We were there about a month ago, and they told us they're old, and we met their oldest resident, who's 104 years old. So they do have COVID precautions in place. And so if you do want to go to that service, please sign up in the link that is sent out in our weekly newsletter, or come find me. We really are capping it at 10, and there will be a whole waitlist process if we hit more than 10. If you were with us last week, we restarted the Venice Beach service in feeding the homeless and then housed along the boardwalk. We created kits last week. They were hygiene kits with things like toothpaste, shampoo, conditioner, that sort of thing. We have a lot of extra that we are going to continue passing out. But for those of you who, if it's on your heart to serve the homeless, or there's someone in your neighborhood that you know spends certain time in a certain area, and you'd like to pass out one of these hygiene kits, we are going to set them out tonight, a few of them tonight. Feel free to take them with you, and you can just have them in your car for someone that you might see along the way throughout your daily life. Follow us on social media. We do have our weekly newsletter. If you would like to be included in the weekly newsletter, please see Mark in the back. He's in the long sleeve in the back. Give him your information, he'll sign you up. We are also posting our information on our Instagram and Facebook sites. Our Instagram handle is Holy Resurrection Church, so please follow. Is that all the announcements? Okay, so last thing, we do have refreshments for you all. This was a very thought-provoking conversation. And so we have some coffee and tea outside, as well as some desserts. 'Tis the season, so there's pumpkin spice coffee for those who partake in such. So please stick around in the courtyard. We'd love to see you there.
Let's pray together. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Lord, make us worthy to pray thankfully. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation. Deliver us from the evil one. Christ Jesus our Lord, thine is the kingdom, power, glory forever. Amen. Now the love of God the Father, the grace of his only begotten Son, our Lord God and Savior Jesus Christ, communion and gift of the Holy Spirit be with you all. The peace of the Lord be with you. Thank you, George, and thank you, Susan. God bless you and reward you.
Feel our heart.